Hello, welcome. My name is Eleni. Welcome to Transformational Love, Eleni's Tribe. Today we're going to be exploring mindset, our mindset around money, our talents, our abilities, and our experiences with generosity, specifically our most impactful experiences with the generosity of others towards us. So today we're going to look at the parable of the master and the servants in reference to the talents. So a master was going to go away for a number of months, a significant amount of time, to become king of a faraway land. And while he was gone, he instructed his most trustworthy servants that he was going to give them some currency called minas. And I guess the modern equivalent would be 3 months' wages. And that would equal to about $16,000 roughly per mina per servant if each one were to get one talent. Now, in one version of the story, we have 3 servants, and one gets 10 minas, and one gets how much? 5, and then one gets 1, something like that. Anyways, I'm not worried about the specific details. But I do want you to get the idea is that he's like, hey, I'm going to be gone for a while. I'm going to come back even more powerful than ever, a man of even greater influence. I trust you, servants. Here is a large sum of money. I want you to take it, and I want you to invest it. And I never got anywhere do I get the impression that he gave them any kind of an or else or anything like that. Okay. He looked at each one and had confidence in their ability level and gave to each according to their ability. And sure, perhaps it was a test to see which ones he was going to be able to trust and elevate upon his return based on how they handled the currency that he gave them at the time. This all goes back to our mindset. So looking at one of the servants, most of the servants were able to double the currency that he gave them. So when upon his return, they were able to say, look, you gave me this amount and I was able to double that amount, and here's what I have now. One servant, however, had a very self-defeating and negative mindset, and he started to blame shift. Instead of taking responsibility for his behavior and saying, you know what, I really didn't have a lot of confidence in myself, and I was afraid I would disappoint you and let you down, and that I would somehow gain your anger through that disappointment. And so I kind of just hid the money away just out of my own fear. Not that you did anything wrong, but I know I let you down, but here's your money. I should have done better, but I didn't. It's my fault. Instead, he proceeded to say, well, I knew what a demanding person you are. Therefore, because of this, I buried the talents and I did nothing with them. And so here you go, basically insulting his now king, previously master, now a monarch, and just telling him that it's your fault. I did nothing with this because even though you gave it to me, I did not have enough confidence in myself. So therefore, I'm just going to blame you and say it's your fault that I took no action. Somehow it's you. So I'm a victim here. I'm just not going to do anything. So I wonder, how many times do we blame other people for our own behavior? How many times do we look at them pointing the finger when I can't even imagine how this master monarch felt when he gave them an exorbitant amount of cash, $16,000 roughly on average for each one in today's economy. So he's very generous with them. And he said, here, I believe in you. Go take this, make it grow. And when I get back, I want to see what you did. And to have somebody say, by the way, I know what kind of jerk you are, so I'm just going to give you back your money. How insulting and how close-minded. He had an opportunity to grow the money. Even if he'd done the bare minimum, it would have gotten interest if he'd invested into some type of local bank economy of the time. But he chose not to do that. So I just want us to be careful of our mindset. Do we have a growth mindset, or do we have a blame shifting mindset where it's somebody else's fault if we don't succeed? What if somebody comes along and they believe in you and they're willing to invest in you? Are you willing to let them? Or are you going to sabotage yourself? Are you going to put yourself down, think of all the negatives, and not recognize any of the positives that they're wanting you to see in yourself, or that they're willing to point out in you because they want to invest in you. Well, God wants to invest in you, and he wants to invest in me. And he wants us to have a growth mindset. This brings me to generosity. In this parable, the master, now turned monarch, was very generous with his servants. He had confidence in them that they would be able to succeed with the task at hand. How many of us would be that generous to give an employee 3 months worth of wages, top wages, and to say, do whatever you want with it. I just want to see that it's grown. When I get back, I know you're going to do well with it. And when I get back, it's going to have grown. It's going to gotten better. And I can't wait to see what you did. So a lot of times, many of us get caught up in the weeds, as I call them, and things happen and we wind up self-sabotaging or blaming or finger pointing or whatever it might happen to be. So instead of having a growth mindset, we wind up hurting ourselves and the people around us and pushing away any positivity that comes our way, any encouragement that comes our way. Sometimes we don't get that positivity and encouragement from others. So I'm just going to encourage you to dig deep and look inside and look up and just find that joy, find that peace, find that confidence that is there for you, that is your rightful heritage. And I'm going to encourage you to be a generous person by having a positive mindset and flourishing in joy, choosing hope, choosing happiness, and taking steps, investing in those areas of your life that will help you grow in your joy, in your happiness. And I'm not talking about material things. The whole point of the parable wasn't about having material things. It was really about having a growth mindset and imagining the possibilities, not just imagining them and having, like, say, a vision board, watching that vision come to life. What would you do if somebody walked up to you today and said, look, here's $16,000. I'll be back in a couple months and I want to see what you do with this. I know you're going to do great things. And they come back and you've doubled it. Or maybe they come back and you were like, oh crap, I didn't do anything with it. Here's your money. I was too nervous. I was afraid I was going to lose it. So I did nothing. Well, it would have been better to try and fail than to not try at all. That's my opinion. Trying is better, because when you don't try, it's like you've already quit. You're not even doing anything. You're not taking a step in a positive direction. So try to take some healthy steps today. Put one foot in front of the other and take one step at a time. And this brings me to the point of my conversation when I want to talk about generosity. Not only was this master turned monarch very generous, the question was posed to me, my experience, most impactful experience of generosity in my life. And I have to say that my mindset and my perspective was deeply impacted by my parents. They were probably the most generous people that I've ever known in my entire life. My dad worked a lot of long hours. He's a blue collar worker. He worked in a factory. One of the times that stood out the most to me was when I was a teenager. And there was a woman named Sister Irene. She lived in Youngstown. And she ran a church there, a Greek church. And she'd gotten up in years. And so she was closing down the church and there was a piano there. She wanted me to have it. So we took it home and I had it for a while, but just wasn't practical, wasn't working out, and it needed too many repairs. There was no way I was going to be able to keep it, even though I wanted to. So I thought the next best thing I could do was to sell it to somebody that rehabbed pianos, and maybe somebody who could play it and enjoy it more would be able to invest in it. So that's what I did. And then I prayerfully, in my young, ripe old age of 14, 15, 16, I can't remember exactly how old I was, I prayed about what to do with that money. I got $100 for it. And I remember I had the money and my mom and dad, they were sitting in the front seat. My dad was driving and I sat behind my mom, passenger side in the back. My brother sat to the left of me. And that was always where we sat. And we were driving to a Bible study or a prayer meet or something like that in our community. And my dad says, so what are you going to do with that $100? And I said, well, I decided that I want to give it to the ministry. And so I don't remember exactly which ministry, but I believe it was the one that we were involved with. And so I remember my dad getting silent for a second. He looked at my mom and she looked at him and he goes, well, I want you to know, because you're willing to do this. And $100 then was a lot of money. It's a lot of money now, but when I was a teenager, it was even more so impactful. Because you're willing to take this $100 and give it to the Lord and to ministry, and you're not thinking of yourself, I'm going to give you $100. And he just told me how proud of me he was. I could tell his confidence in me as a spiritual being was very much impacted. And I just felt good knowing, even though I didn't do it to impress him, and I wasn't trying to some people would see that as throwing away money, right? I just want to do the most good. So for me, giving the $100 to the ministry was doing the most good. The reason why that it impacted me so much is because I knew that my dad started off at minimum wage when he started the job he was in. A blue collar worker, factory worker, was about $1.25 or so when he started working, I think, around that, under $2. And I remember over the years how proud he would be anytime he got a 25-cent raise. He'd come home and tell all of us how proud he was of his raise. And by the time he reached retirement age, I don't know, about 10 years ago or more, I remember him making probably a little bit more than what minimum wage is now, above the $10 mark. It wasn't too much more, but he used to work 12-hour days, 5, 6, sometimes 7 days a week. And for him to give me that $100, this was a couple days worth of work for him to get enough money after taxes, right? And all the stuff that comes out of a paycheck. Imagine him going to work and just knowing that he was working to reward his daughter, to give her $100 for something she had done. And I just remember, and I just think back on it now and how much that means to me, knowing that he was giving to me from his heart because I gave from my heart. And really, that's what generosity is about. He gave from a place of sacrifice, but he did it in love. And that's what my parents always did. And that's what they taught me. They always gave out of a generous, loving heart. They were always compassionate and nurturing, with an open hand to all those around them. And they were good stewards of their money. And they were loving, giving people. And that's how I see God. I see him as being generous. I see him as being somebody who believes in us and is willing to invest in us. So I just want to encourage us to have a positive mindset that says that we're willing to invest in ourselves, and we're willing to change any negative thought patterns that we have and be more positive and choose joy and have hope and put our plans into action and not be afraid and stay stuck in fear and excuse making or blaming or any kind of victim mentality that we might have. I hope I've inspired you today with this story, true story. I'll never forget that. And I cherish the days with my mother and father, and they're great people. And I think back on those examples, countless examples of their generosity. It wasn't meant to spoil me. It was meant to teach me a lesson, and it surely did. Remember, you are worth it, you are worthy, and you are loved. Have a great day.